Hello and welcome to Dawn Chorus Writes, a Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction and Audiofic. This is a miraculous fairy tale called Secrets Under the Moon, so I hope you're enjoying it. It's an AU version mixed in with Beauty and the Beast. Massive shout out to the artist who did the beautiful commissioned artwork in the thumbnail. Make sure you send her lots of love. All her information is listed down below. Make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe if you're not already, and share to others who might enjoy it. And I hope you do too. Chapter 15. The moment Marinette began to slip, Cat felt it somewhere deeper than sight or sound, as though the curse had reached through the warped garden and hooked itself beneath his ribs. The shadows around her feet surged upwards, twisting over the gravel and coiling around her ankles with a cold living purpose, and the space between them buckled hard enough that the air seemed to split. She was still there, still fighting, still reaching for him, but the garden no longer obeyed distance or shape. The path stretched, the hedges bent inwards, and the moonlight fractured across her face as if the world itself had become a broken mirror. She cried, but even that came to him muffled, thin and distant, as though the shadows were already swallowing her voice. The sound struck something raw inside of him. He lunged forward before thought could fully form, claws tearing free as his paw-like hands drove into the darkness, trying to block him. The curse surged back at once, not simply resisting him, but answering him, pushing into his chest, his arms, his throat, into the part of him that had been growing harder to quiet since the night this nightmare began. His shoulders tightened beneath the weight of it, his spine bowing as power rushed through him too quickly, too violently. Destruction had always lived in him, but this was different. This was destruction being called, coaxed, fed. It curled through his bones and whispered without words that he did not need to restraint. Not now. Not when she was being taken. Cat forced his claws deeper into the shadow, trying to anchor himself and pull through rather than slash apart everything between them. He knew what would happen if he simply let the power loose. He had spent too long learning the edges of it, the cost of it, the way one careless strike could turn rescue into ruin. But the curse pressed harder, and with it came the ache of transformation, the old cruel magic tightening over what was left of him. His claws lengthened until they scraped against stone. His tail slashed behind him, striking the gravel with a sharp crack. The mane of his hair fell forward, as his head lowered and the growl that slipped from his throat sounded too deep, too rough, too much like the beast Felix had always wanted the world to see. "Marinette, hold on!" he called, though he could barely hear his own voice over the pressure building in his skull. She answered him, or tried to, but the shadows curled higher, warping around her knees as the garden began to change. Roots burst through the gravel at her feet, dark and twisted, not natural growth but something born from the curse, dragging the neat beauty of the palace gardens into something wild and cruel. Branches bent down from the hedges, thin at first, then thicker, knotting around her arms as she fought against them. Cat saw her fingers claw at the bindings, saw the fear flash across her face, and something in him tore wider. Before he could force another step, Boot hit stone behind him. The Howlers came out of the warped gardens like they'd been waiting inside of it, spilling from the hedge paths and broken shadows in rough, deliberate formation. They were not Felix shadow creatures. They were men. Street thugs with heavy coats, hidden faces, iron bars, knives, hooks, and the kind of cruel confidence that came from being paid well enough to ignore the consequences. Cat remembered them too clearly. He remembered the fear they carried with them, the way they hunted in packs, the way they liked their victims cornered and alone. Only this time, they had not come for some stranger in a dark Paris alleyway. They had come because Felix had sent them, yet again, finishing off what they had started. And now, they stood between him and Marinette. That knowledge settled through him like poison. One of them moved first, swinging a metal bar towards his ribs. Cat turned and caught it across his forearm, the impact ringing through bone and muscle, but he barely felt it now through the pressure of the curse. Another came from the side with a blade angled low, aiming not to scare but to slow him down. Cat twisted enough that the strike missed the worst of him, though the blade still opened a hot line across his side. Pain flared beneath his ribs, sharp and bright, and for one fragile second it should have grounded him. Instead, the curse drank it in and fed it back as fury. He struck back, not with the measured strength he used on patrol, not with the careful control he had always clung to when humans were involved. His claws tore through the man's sleeve and sent him crashing backwards into another howler, both of them hitting the gravel hard. A third rushed him from behind, and Cat spun low, tail whipping for balance as he drove his shoulder into the man's middle and threw him off his feet. The movement came too easily. That was what frightened the part of him still capable of being frightened. His body knew how to do this. The beast knew how to fight without hesitation, how to use claws and the weight and the full violence of what Felix's curse had made him. The Howlers regrouped rather than ran. Of course they did. They had numbers, weapons, and Felix's confidence behind them. They circled him tighter, forcing him away from the shifting place where Marinette was being dragged under. Cat's breath came harder now, dragging against his throat. He could still feel her behind him, not clearly, not enough, but like a pulse under the noise. Each time the root tightened around her, the curse trampled through him. Each muffled sound she made struck against his control until there was less of it to hold. Felix stepped into viewpoint beyond the Howlers, calm in the middle of the violence, his suit still composed, his expression coldly observant. He watched Cat the way one might watch an experiment reach its expected conclusion. "You see what happens when you resist," Felix said, his voice carrying through the warped garden with infuriating ease. "The more you fight it, the more you become exactly what I said you were." Cat bared his teeth before he could stop himself. "Let her go!" Felix's gaze flickered towards the place where Marinette struggled, though he didn't turn fully. "I'm trying to save what is left of her." The words struck with the final thread of resistance holding him steady. Cat lunged again, driving through the Howlers with a force that sent the closest two stumbling back. One slashed at his shoulder, another caught him across the back with the length of chain. But neither blow slowed him the way they should have. His thoughts were beginning to narrow now. Not gone, not yet, but thinning, losing shape at the edges. There was Marinette. There was Felix. There were bodies in the way. Everything else became the sound and scent of movement. Boots scraping stone, metal cutting air, blood under fur, shadows eating moonlight, her voice further away each time. A howler tried to hook an arm around his throat from behind. Cat reached back and caught the man by the coat, threw him over his shoulder into the path of another. Someone shouted, someone else swore and backed away. Cat hardly registered which was which. His claws hit metal, then stone, then fabric. He could smell fear now, sour and human, rising from the men who thought themselves hunters, until they remembered what happened when prey had teeth. Felix moved at last. He picked up a fallen metal bar from the gravel and came at Cat himself, not with wild anger, but with precise, cutting intention. Years of fencing and kendo training finally come into use. The first blow caught Cat across the side where the blade had already bitten, and the pain tore through him hard enough to make him stagger. Felix struck again before he could fully recover, aiming for the same place, always the same place, controlled and calculating. Cat blocked the second hit with his forearm and caught Felix's wrist on the third. Claws pressed into the expensive fabric and the skin beneath. For a moment, they were close enough that Cat could see the strain beneath Felix's composure. "You think this proves anything?" Cat growled. Felix's mouth curved. It was not quite a smile. "I don't need to prove it to you." The shadows tightened around Marinette, and this time her cry was almost completely smothered. Cat's head snapped towards her, but Felix used the distraction, driving his knee into Cat's wounded side. Pain burst white behind Cat's vision. The curse surged in after it, eager and hot, flooding every place the pain opened. The world reduced. Felix hurt her, mine. Cat drove Felix backwards. The bar fell from Felix's grip as Cat slammed him into the stone balustrade, hard enough to crack it. A howler shouted and tried to intervene, but Cat twisted and struck him aside without looking, never taking his gaze from Felix. His paw-like hand locked around Felix's collar, claws tearing into the fine fabric while he rose it slowly to the base of his neck, while the other lifting slowly, trembling with the force of what he was holding back. Felix's throat was exposed beneath them, his pulse visible, fragile, alive. The garden held its breath. The shadows around Marinette rose higher. Branches knotted across her chest and shoulders, roots binding her wrists until her hands were dragged apart. She fought them still, because of course she did. Even terrified, even half swallowed by the curse, Marinette fought. Cat could see that much through the blur. He could see the silk of her ruined dress, the stain across her waist like a wound, the wild fear in her eyes as the shadows climbed towards her mouth. But her voice was gone now, buried beneath the curse. Felix looked up at him, blood at the corner of his mouth, and a smile as if this had always been where he wanted Cat to end. "Go on," he whispered. "Show her what you are." The words slid into the curse like a turning key. Cat's claws lowered. The thought came not as words now, but as need. End him. Tear out the center. Stop the threat. Stop the pain. Save her. His arm trembled as Felix's artery pulsed fast beneath his claws, ready to be exposed in a single second. The Howlers had gone still around them, no longer eager to step closer. This was a one-on-one battle now. Even the shadows seemed to wait, tightening over Marinette as though the curse itself wanted to witness the final surrender. Then something broke through. Not clearly, not gently. It was a sound forced through fear and roots and shadow, a cry dragged from the last place left before the darkness covered her mouth. "Kitty! Stop!" The name hit harder than the blade, harder than the curse, harder than any blow that Howlers had landed. Not cat, not beast. Kitty. The word belonged to the rooftop air, to soft concern, to the girl who had looked at him and still reached for him when she didn't understand why. It cut through the narrow violence in his mind and dragged something human-shaped back into the dark. "Succumb to the beast." Felix strained so that only Cat could hear. His claws stopped instantly, retracting slowly, skin and blood now evident on his paw-like hand, which was still pressing in against Felix's throat. For 1 second, Cat saw himself reflected in Felix's eyes, not as Marinette saw him, not as a man hidden beneath the curse, but as something feral, wounded, half lost to magic and rage, a second away from becoming a murderer with forever blood-soaked paws. Killing Felix would not save her. It wouldn't break the curse and turn him back to his true form. The truth landed with sickening force. No. His brother's death wouldn't stop all this. It wouldn't return her memories. It wouldn't untangle the roots around her body or the shadows at her mouth. It would only finish what Felix had started. It would prove that the beast was all that remained, and if the key to breaking the curse was Marinette choosing to love the creature he had become, then how could she ever do that after seeing this? It would only mean that Felix had won in the worst possible way. The clarity gutted him. This wasn't him. Cat nor Adrian would act this way. Keeping his eyes locked on Marinette, Cat released Felix. With blood pooled at the corner of his lips, Felix smirked.
I knew you'd be too weak to do it, but I'm not.
The hidden blade flashed upwards and drove deep beneath Cat's ribs into the wound already opened by the Howler's strike. Pain exploded through him, immediate and blinding. His body bowed around it, a broken sound tearing from his chest as his claws slammed into the stone beside Felix's head instead of his throat. Marinette screamed, thrashing against her restraints, ignoring the visible pain it must cause her. But they only resisted harder. Branches clawed higher around her face, one dark twisted vine dragged across her cheek, another forcing her chin up as the roots pulled her deeper into the broken earth. Tears, makeup, and dirt smeared across her face as the final vine silenced her cry and fear for good. He had never seen Marinette so truly scared before, and yet she was still fighting, still twisting against the hold, still trying to reach him, her beast, even after. Felix shoved him back. Cat stumbled, one paw-like hand clamping over his side as the warmth spilled between his paws. His tail dragged for half a second before flicking weakly behind him, and the sudden loss of strength frightened him more than the wound itself. The Howlers shifted uncertainly, no longer sure whether to attack, retreat, or wait for Felix's next command.
Weak. You've always been too weak to act, to do what was necessary, Felix sneered. I don't know what Father saw in you, why Marinette chose you and not me. I was the strong one, whilst you were the one who accepted the scraps from the table. Like a beast. A worthless little beast who didn't deserve what he had. I was the one who should have taken over the business. It should have been me named as the Prince of Paris. Me who loved Marinette more. You would never go to such lengths to prove how much you loved her.
He was breathing harder now, his composure cracked but not broken.
I never needed to prove to her. We loved, trusted each other, our souls intertwined into the point, even now,
Cat said, breathless.
You can't honestly say she loves the beast that you are. Otherwise the curse would have gone, disappeared, and yet here we are. I won, and you're finished.
Felix chuckled as he bent over Cat and slammed his scuffed dress shoes into Cat's gut, pushing the air out of his lungs and a shooting pain to tear through his body.
Any final words? I hate to see an animal in pain. Best we end this now.
Felix mocked, stroking back the mane, struggling to strain the laughter threatening to burst out. Cat lifted his head. His vision swam at the edges, but Marinette was still there, still being taken, and that was the only thing that mattered.
I should have saved her first. I'm sorry,
he rasped. The choice cost him. He used his claw to drag himself across the gravel, feeling the pressure tear through the wounds. He had no strength left. Every breath scraped, but the curse was still fighting against him, which meant it hadn't won either. There was still a chance, still hope. He just needed to reach her, save her, and yet the shadows thrashed around him with fresh violence, slashing across the path, roots cracking stone as he dragged Marinette lower. Cat focused on his love. He only needed to last a little longer. He gathered all the strength he could muster as he got on all fours, using the power of destruction to save her. His claws dug into the gravel, his tail slashed for balance as he launched himself towards her with everything he had left.
Marinette!
He growled, voice breaking under the effort.
Reach for me!
She tried. Even bound, even terrified, she tried. Her fingers strained against the roots, trembling as she fought for millimeters. She mumbled into the vine across her mouth, but saw the fearful message in her eyes as the tears streamed down her face. Cat slammed his claws into the edge of the shadow space and held. He did not slash this time. He did not destroy. He anchored himself between her and the dark, and the effort tore through him worse than any blade. The wound opened further, blood slicking his fur and dripping into the broken path. But he held because destruction would not save her now. Only holding on might. For one impossible second, her fingers brushed his. Not enough to grasp, not enough to feel. Instantly, the shadows recoiled as if burnt. Hope flared, small and savage, inside his chest. Then Felix spoke behind him, voice low and cold.
It's too late.
Then the curse yanked hard. In a split second, Marinette was gone. Vanished beneath the darkness, her eyes fixed on him until the very last second.
No!
Cat lunged after her, but the world had already snapped close behind them. His claws struck empty stone, the roots withdrew, the branches lifted. The shadows folded inwards and sealed over the place where she had been, as though she had never stood there at all. For a moment, Cat could not move. He had lost her, but to where? His paw remained outstretched against the ground, claws buried into the cracks, blood seeping out his side and pattering softly into the gravel. The Howlers were silent. Felix was gone. Even the garden seemed to hold its breath. Cat stared at the empty space where Marinette had disappeared. Then the beast inside of him howled. Thank you for listening to chapter 15. It's pretty dark at the moment. Bear with, even Beauty and the Beast is the ending point. So I hope you're enjoying it. Make sure you smash that like button. If you are, comment down below Howlers, if you don't know what else to put. And make sure you share to anyone else who might enjoy it. And I hope you stay tuned for next Monday for chapter 16. And I promise, well, actually, I might not promise, but every chapter might end as a cliffhanger. We shall see. But yeah, sorry, this one's another one. But at least you're looking forward to Mondays now. But I hope you're good, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.